Welcome to Concussion Podcast. This is episode 112. I'm with Melanie Wienhoven. I messed up again, but Melanie, you want to chip in and say what your real name is?
Melanie Wienhoven.
Wienhoven, right? Anyway, yes. Well, so I'll be talking to Melanie Wienhoven in a second, and but first I'll stop for a word from my sponsor, Head Check Health. Concussion Talk Podcast is presented by Head Check Health. Head Check Health bridges the gaps in concussion care through simple, powerful technology. Join organizations like the Canadian Football League, Track Factory Racing, the Canadian Junior Hockey League, Eastern Washington University, and Volleyball Canada, who rely on Head Check Health to improve communication and optimize care. Visit headcheckhealth.com for more. Okay, now I want to say I knew I'd mess that name up. It's not a very complicated name, it's just pronunciation. Although there's no English name to spell that way, I don't think. So, but anyway, we were talking before about you have your own podcast as well, but you started that because you had a very severe concussion yourself. And so, do you want to just tell us about when and where did you get your concussion?
Sure, of course. Yes, I sustained my concussion back in 2012. So I had just graduated university, and I just started a traineeship at a Dutch corporation. And one day I was cycling back from work to home, and while I was doing that, I had an accident with my bike. So I had this little basket in front of my bike where I put stuff in.
I've seen pictures of Amsterdam paintings of women on bikes with the little basket in front.
Yeah.
It was exactly that, was it?
Well, no, it was. I think those are more solid. So the problem was that mine was quite it wasn't of good quality. So it was just. It was like those ones are with crates. The ones you see mostly in the pictures, but mine was just fixed with one, I think aluminum, I don't know what you call it, not even a bolt, hook or something. And I always put a lot in it because they are very practical. But what happened was that in the end it went down, so it was loaded too heavily all the time, and it bent down, and then it started pressuring my headlamp. And in the end, I didn't notice this process, but in the end, was it dark out? No, it's just 4:30 in the afternoon or so after work, or 5:30. I think 4:30 is a bit early.
Not important.
But it was light, it was summer. And then my headlamp broke off because of this pressure, and then it flipped in between of my spokes of the front wheel, and so my front wheel blocked, and then I was launched forward over my steer. And I landed on my hands and my knees on the street, and then everything happened. So a lot of experiences happened at the same time. So for example, the first thing that I remember was that there was this very sharp pain inside my head, inside my skull. I always describe it as it felt like a pin pierced my head. It sounds gross, but it's just the way it felt. And it was cold and hard. And then I couldn't see, so everything turned black, and this high-pitched ringing started in my ears. So all of these sensations came over me, and it was really, I don't know, it took a long while in my experience, but in hindsight, I've of course thought back to this moment a lot. And in hindsight, I think it was only maybe 30 seconds or 90 seconds stops that all of this happened, and someone grabbed me off the street because of course I wasn't safe. And I felt his hands, but I just couldn't hear him. I heard a sound, but I couldn't understand words. I couldn't see anything. Everything was black. I still had this tone in my ears. It was a really, really strange experience.
I'll bet. Yeah. So I mean, so did you know you hit your head, or you just thought I fell off my bike and I hurt my? Did you hurt anything else, like your
Well, I
leg
had a
or?
whiplash.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was the whiplash movement that my body made. And actually, I didn't even hit my head. So this
Okay.
is a very important thing that I always tell people, because
Yeah.
I also thought this, and that's why I just drove on afterward.
Yeah.
I thought I had to hit my head in order to have a concussion. So it
Yeah.
never occurred to me that I have one.
Yeah.
But it was because of this whiplash movement that my brain was smashed into my skull, as a matter of fact. And that's how you can also get a concussion.
Exactly. That's a pretty good point. So did you? You rode just rode straight home, right? And then you said,
Yeah.
I heard you another podcast say you just went to bed then and woke up the next day and continued on like normal, basically.
Yes. Yeah. I thought it was all a nightmare, literally. So I went to bed because I was so tired I could just sleep. Well, there was also this first sign of that something was wrong, because I would never sleep at 6 p.m. Sorry.
Yeah.
But then the next morning I thought, okay, I'll just go to work.
Yeah.
And I didn't notice anything wrong. So I just got dressed, I packed my bag, and then I went outside to get onto my bike. And that's when my body froze. So my body knew something was wrong, but I didn't know in my mind. So
Yeah.
I froze, and I was crying and I was panicking, and I was like, what's happening? Why is my body doing this? But it was just protecting me, because in fact, I think it registered the bike as danger in that moment.
Yeah, right. So how long was it before you actually went from, say, work to hospital? Or did you go from home to hospital, or when did you actually see a doctor?
Well, it was only 1.5 weeks later. That was when I noticed first that something was wrong.
Yeah.
It's strange, huh? Now I know it's not strange, but back then I thought it was strange.
Yeah, definitely does feels where it's like you can't remember what you did, but you possibly did yesterday or that morning.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was just that in the days after, I was just laughing with colleagues, like I did something stupid again. I always do these things. So it was just like one of those things that I was being clumsy. But then in a week or so, after a week or so, I noticed things crumbling. So I couldn't concentrate. People were annoying me. I was never annoyed. I couldn't stand the noise in the office. I couldn't look at my screen. It was just too bright. Yeah. Even if I had it in dark mode, which wasn't dark mode back then, ancient times.
Ancient times, 2014 or whatever it was, 2012.
2012, it was like widescreen, but darkest mode possible. So all of these things started to happen to me, and I didn't know what was wrong, but in the end, I couldn't do my work. And that was a trigger for me that I needed to go check with a doctor.
Right. And what did they tell you when you went to see a doctor first time, 10 days after your injury?
Yeah, it was my GP, and he said that I probably had a concussion from the fall. It was the only thing that we could relate it to.
How long did it take you to get to realize that you got to do a vaccine? What did you do? You're like, well, 10 days ago I fell off my bike, or did you get there by like saying, well, yesterday I went for a run or I did yoga or whatever, or I may have done something, but I don't know what.
Yeah, that's a good question. I actually don't really remember, because that time, and especially the time after that, oftentimes I really didn't know what was happening to me. Everything went just too fast and too much. But I figured that he asked the right questions, so that I realized that that was the thing that went wrong.
Right.
Yeah. And but then I also checked my medical report. I also shared that with others later on. So in the medical report, it very clearly says diagnosis, concussion, advice, rest.
Okay.
And so he told me to rest and just cancel my work appointments, go home, and stay in bed and do nothing.
And when
sorry?
No, sorry, go ahead. Keep that.
I wanted to say, which wasn't the advice that people should generally listen to, that I should have listened to, but back then I didn't know better. And a lot of doctors also didn't know all of the things that would come out in research later on, of course. But that wasn't the best advice that I could have followed.
So what were your symptoms? Your symptoms you really noticed now are very difficult.
Well, so many. Well, my initial symptoms mostly were concentration was number one.
Yeah.
So I had always been able to rely on my brain. It was my whole life. Everything I did was built on more. I could always study more. I could always work more. I could always just build everything around my brain, and I could do it.
Yeah.
And then it didn't work anymore.
Yes.
So that was a very clear symptom for me. And then also I had these episodes of dizziness / vertigo. I don't know exactly where it was in the spectrum, but I could just stand and I would have the feeling that I was falling over. So then I would fall over because I would grab for things.
Yeah, right. I've had that.
Yeah, that too.
Well, I mean, my balance is I'm very unsteady, and I'm not very unsteady. But I'm very young. Well, I was very unsteady. I'm just unsteady, and but that was a long time ago. But I do find around now, and I'll like walk around the corner or something like that. And I'll be walking on one leg, and all of a sudden I'll be like stop. I'll stop for no reason. I'll be like, but I don't feel very steady, and I catch myself.
Okay. Well, that's a good way of dealing with it, because it is actually dangerous if you don't feel steady. So one of the other things that I also had was that I had trouble finding words. So now again, I can speak and I can find my words, but back then you
can find Dutch words, and it's not necessarily. And you can find English words as well as Dutch words. That's impressive. I don't know. Like I told you before, I don't know any Dutch. So I can find English words, but I just saw those anyway. But I still can't find Dutch words. So.
But you haven't learned. Your brain is able to do that.
Yes,
as you know. Yeah. No, that's unfair, because we grow up hearing English, of course. You never heard Dutch, probably.
Yeah. Well,
no? Or you have?
I've heard it, but just I think I never lived in Amsterdam or Holland or the Netherlands, or if we want to call it.
Where have you been?
There. Sorry?
Have you been?
I never been there. No. I've been to Ireland, but never like mainland Europe.
No, okay. So that's something that could be done
later
on in life.
Definitely, they should get up with that. I mean, what's stopping me? Nothing. So it was actually now gets COVID stopping me, but in general. So he goes, sorry, you're saying you for finding words?
Yeah, so that was also something that was really hard for me, because before I could always use my words to achieve things, and then I wasn't able to communicate well anymore. So this wasn't only a problem, for example, in work, but also in normal life, like arranging things that I needed in that moment, medical help, support from others, but also going to do groceries. Anything was a problem now, because I had this not inability, but this
confusion.
Yes.
Yeah, communication confusion, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then also a side effect of that was that I lost confidence. Because of that.
That's a big one. Yeah. When did you decide you need you check out you need to make a change? And how did your mind basically that leads to had your mindset change, or did your mindset change at all? And what else is here? But when did you realize? What did you realize you need to do? When did you realize you need to do something for yourself to help yourself? Something different than just going resting and that's it.
That's a very good question. So I hear two questions, and the last one is the answer to that is very literal to me. So you said, when did I learn that I needed to help myself, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And that's, to me, that's when I learned that no one was going to do it for me. In the beginning, I was so passive about my recovery.
yeah,
And that was, I've forgiven myself for that, because how could I know what I should have done?
yeah,
Plus, the doctors were always telling me that recovery was achieved because of passive behavior, like rest, wait and see, avoid stimuli. And in the end, this didn't yield anything else than that my entire life, almost my entire life, just fell away, and my identity even eroded. And I had trouble remembering who I was and what I wanted to do with my life. All of my dreams, they weren't worth nothing anymore, because I couldn't even live a part of that in my daily life.
Yeah.
And in the end, that left me in such a place that I realized that the only one who was going to change it, even though other ones would have so much wanted to help me, and other ones were trying to help me, how could they have known?
Yeah.
Even I didn't know, but I still knew a little bit more because I was experiencing it, but they didn't have an idea as well, and they couldn't have. So that's when I realized that I needed to be the one to change everything. And if I wanted to change it, I needed to make it my highest goal in life at that moment. So that's when everything.
So what did you do then? What did you when you realized, oh, yeah, I need to do this and do exchange? What did you actually do?
Yes. So the most important things that I realized, and they were based on everything that I did wrong in the beginning, is that instead of passive, I needed active recovery. And active recovery involved a lot of lifestyle changes, involved conscious and consistent habit training, but also a lot of well-controlled brain training, exercises, but also whole programs that I all incorporated and improved upon over time. And that entire package is, in the end, what helped me recover. And it's not like a magic pill, right? You've also experienced this probably. So there are a lot of aspects that come with it. And it took me, I think, 3-4 years in order to figure all of it out. And then after 5 years after my recovery, I started feeling only then that everything came together. And that's very interesting, because a lot of doctors told me, and I hear others saying this as well, that they have been told this as well, that brain injury after 2 years can't recover.
I heard that, I heard that too.
That isn't true.
Yeah. No, it's not.
I did it more than 5 years after injury. And but the most important thing is that it didn't have to take this long. Had I known everything that I had learned, it would have been faster. And that's why in the end I created the Cure My Concussion course, so the course that I made. And that's where I bundled all of these things, all of these aspects in there. So strategy, but also tools, everything.
I was trying to literally get the camera, the video feed just kind of sped up for 1 second. They're doing that thing with their hands. It's a little flurry of the hands, but anyway, that's for you and I to laugh at. It was no else can see this. But so that was your Cure My Concussion course. But you also have this Lifeyana. Is that your whole program, or your whole, I guess, not company? What is it? It's a charity organization.
Yes, organization. So back when at that lowest point, when I realized that I needed to make the change, because otherwise nothing really would happen. I really felt this need, because of, at that moment, I felt like I had lost almost everything about who I was before. And I wanted no one that I could have an influence on or impact on to go through the same thing. So in that moment, I felt this very strong drive, not to do it just for me, but to then, after I recovered, come back and help others who are going through the same. That was so, like, it just came automatically. It's not me, it's all of us.
Yeah.
And we have to change this. We have to change what's going on, and that a lot of doctors don't know what's going on for us and all the side effects and everything. So that's when I knew that I was going to do this. And then now it's like 6 years later, now it's here.
That's great.
And yeah, and I could, of course, I wanted to make it into an organization where I could do this from. And I was looking for a name, and that's when Lifeyana came up, because Yana is in American, it's an acronym for "You Are Not Alone," which is my most important message.
Yeah.
And also, I'm always studying Buddhism, and Yana is also a Buddhistic term, which represents so much as a vehicle that helps you on your road. That's a bit of the rough translation.
Yeah.
But I would like to help people on their roads to recovery. Nice. So that's how that came to be. And Lifeyana it's just a name, but the whole idea is to help people learn from my lessons and to help them recover faster.
Oh no, I think that's amazing. It's great because you can put it all in one spot, because I know even like as many people as I've talked to this, and my injury was 19 years ago, almost 19 years ago. And and then like, I read neuroplasticity from my physio, who was just done a course in Chicago, and I was in St. John's in Canada, but she had done a course, like the year before or a few months before. But there was it's like the neuroplasticity, which I know you talked to the doctor on your podcast about neuroplasticity. She mentioned that to me, and I learned a bit about it, but she did, but it was more just interest, and she also did a course on it. She's more interested. She's an amazing physiotherapist, but and also the habit training side was important. And I interviewed this woman also was last spring or 2 springs ago. No, anyway, last while ago, and she doesn't in Canada, small town, not small town, but smaller than Ontario towns there. So it's bigger than the town here. But anyway, she does habit training, habit coaching, that sort of thing. She had a brain herself, and she thinks that habit training, habit by practicing habits is just an essential part. And you learn about learning habits and training your brain, and training your brain is something that I've definitely heard a lot of. So I think that's really important, just to learn how to train your brain, and they put it all in one spot. It's just amazing. And but you also, to help you out with your mind, not necessarily brain. You also do yoga and practice for study Buddhism. So when did you start with that aspect of it?
Well, yoga I started back when I was recovering. So about, I think, half a year after I sustained my injury, my roommate came to me and said, well, I have this yoga teacher and I think you should go. It's perfect for you. I was like, yoga? Yeah. I'm not for that. Not for me. And she asked again, and then I said, okay, I will go. Yeah. And that was partly because in my rehab program back at the time, there was also mindfulness training. So I had already tasted a little bit about it, and it was very calming. So then I went, and since then I've been hooked. So
and you teach it now too. You teach. Yes. So what type of yoga do you teach?
Well, my what do you call it? Like training was for vinyasa, so very active form. But my lessons are more, I call them often slow flow. So it's it is active, but very much listening to your body, having time to respond to what's going on.
Doing that for almost 10 years now. This will be 10 years. 2012 was when your extension was. This is 10 years. So
You're doing yoga, yes. Yeah.
And yeah, so that's again, that's also I love it. And so where did this Buddhism come from? Did it come from when you started taking yoga or mindfulness training? Did you get into Buddhism then, or did you always have a different Buddhism?
You said, I'm sorry, I didn't really
Oh,
understand
sorry.
what you asked me. When Buddhism you asked about, right?
Yeah, basically
yes.
just without trigger enough to know.
Yes. So the interest in Buddhism, I think, yeah, it's a mixed influence, but of course, yoga already triggered a little bit.
Yeah.
Then I was learning, so about 2015, 16, 17, something like that, I started looking into trauma recovery and healing, psychological healing, I mean, and that's when I found all of these pieces all pushing me toward Buddhism. Like you have books about self-compassion, for example, just in general from Western scientists. And I would read a book by the Dalai Lama about joy, for example. And that's
I read that one too with Desmond Tutu.
The Book of Joy?
Yes. Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama, yeah.
It's my favorite book. You know it. Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
How did you like it?
I thought it was great. I mean, I don't know if it's my favorite book, but it's definitely an amazing book. It's not generally just how I read, but it was incredible. It's just fun, just nice, just give you a nice feeling. Positive.
Exactly. So that was very helpful. But all of these things were pointing me toward, okay, study Buddhism. And then I thought, okay, I'm going to study Buddhism. So then I found Thich Nhat Hanh, who recently died, passed away. But he taught me a lot about Buddhism, and I'm still studying to this day because he's such a great teacher in his books. Great.
Well, geez, that's it's an incredible story, and thank you so much for sharing it. We're going to do your podcast now in a minute. I went up after we finish this, obviously. So we'll have to just stay on after. But first, before I say goodbye officially, to talk about your website, your Facebook, your social media, your YouTube, whatever, where can people find you?
Yeah, where people can find us. So for example, especially on Lifeyana.com. So that's the website. And
Lifeyana?
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Lifeyana. Wow, that went well in English.
It did well. It was very impressive.
.com, and that's where people can find blog posts, for example, but also download free materials and find the Cure My Concussion course if they are interested. And also on Instagram and Facebook, it's at This Is Lifeyana. And then, of course, Concussion Stories is the name of our podcast, which you can find on almost every channel that you want to search on.
Oh, so. Great. Yeah. I don't know what to say. We're going to find your podcast like online.
Yeah, somewhere.
It's there beneath or somewhere. Yeah. So, okay, well, we'll talk very, very shortly. And so thank you so much. And thank you for listening. And I'm not sure when the next podcast will be out. This will be out February 7th. So it's from February 8th, this one will be out. Today is February 8th. Listening to it on today, it's at least. And the next one actually will be out on February 15th after this. So thank you so much for listening, and great seeing you. And obviously I'll talk to you soon, Melanie. And
thank you so much, Nick.
Thank you. Music at the beginning of this podcast is by Ben Sound, www.bensound.com.